Hi, everyone. Joe Kehrig, managing broker of Coldwell Banker Real Estate in Danville. And this is your San Ramon Valley real estate update for the week of August 31st. So, if you remember the last couple weeks, we talked about whether the market was starting to slow down a little bit. When I talk about slowing down, I mean, it was such an active market and is such a seller's market, but we saw a little bit of a pullback the last couple weeks. And what we really wanted to see is that just the August swoon that we normally have, or is it turning into a trend? Well, and what I mean by August swoon, the last 6 or 7 years, pre-COVID real estate market, it was very active during the spring and then settles down a little bit. Then August, it actually has been the slowest. August has been the slowest month of the year the last 6 or 7 years. I think with school starting, with people getting their last vacations in. So for the most part, it's has definitely, been the trend at least, preceding years. So when we saw the market pull back just a little bit a couple weeks ago, we wanted to see, hey, is that a trend, or is it just a little blip in the system? So again, let's dive right into a couple graphs that I think you'll find interesting, and then obviously we'll dive into where the market is this week compared to where it was a couple weeks ago. First off, take a look at the housing affordability. Here's an interesting fact, and I quiz people on it. I quizzed my office on it yesterday. 49 out of the 50 states, if you can believe it, housing is actually more, real estate to purchase is more affordable now than it was in 1995. In 49 out of the 50 states. And you sit there and go, well, how can that be? Because prices have gone up so much. Well, yeah, people's wages have gone up a little bit, but more than anything else, it shows you the impact that interest rates have, being basically sub 3%, almost free money. What's that one state? It might not surprise a lot of people that are scattering out of California. It's Idaho. Idaho is probably the hottest state going right now for many, many reasons. Obviously, for a while it was Oregon, then it was Texas, then it was Nevada. But for the most part, Idaho is where people are going. So I have 2 or 3 clients that have recently gone to Idaho and purchased, obviously, because when you talk about Eagle and Meridian, Idaho, those people that have moved there say, hey, it reminds me of Danville, reminds me of San Ramon, kind of a suburbia type. And then, of course, you have Boise and other outlining areas. But Idaho is by far the hottest state, and homes that were selling for literally 500,000 a couple years ago and for 900,000 now. And that's why it's the only state that is not as affordable with the low interest rates as it was in 1995. So, but let's look at the housing affordability from 1990 to today. You will basically see that the affordability, obviously during the distressed years when it's dominated the market, was the highest. And then when you look at today, you actually see how much more affordable things are. I mean, you have to go back, going back all the way to 1990, you'll see that things aren't as affordable. It was only during those distressed years where prices went down so much that things were actually a little bit more affordable. So that's an amazing stat to look like. And it basically tells you what impact the interest rates have. Obviously, no matter, you can put me any place in the United States, I'm looking at the supply and demand and the absorption. And I'll tell you where the market's going. And in our market, where we have a lot less actives than we do pendings, yeah, I can tell you where the market's going. It's going to continue to go up. So here's another interesting stat, is the total household debt. So you sit there and go, well, look at the debt. It's going up and up and up and up. How is that if housing is more affordable? Well, what's happening is because people now, the interest rates are keeping the payments down, but people still have a 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, $900,000 mortgage, even if the interest rates are low. And that counts against the total debt. So even though the interest rates are low and things are very affordable, the debt is actually going up. Now, that debt is cheaper for people, but the debt is still going up. People ask, Joe, what's going to happen when the correction? Is there going to be another 2008? No way, because in 2008, people had funny money loans where the interest rates would go up, the adjustable rates. Now almost all the interest rates out there, I mean, who would not get a fixed 30-year loan at 3%? Because you can get like an adjustable rate, but it's only like 2.5 or 2.25. There's hardly any difference. So there's no reason to go out there and get an adjustable rate loan. So these 30-year loans, so you don't have to worry about them going up and your payments going up. That's why we're not going to have another 2008. And I will tell you, the banks paid a pretty price to the point of they were basically almost extorted from the government $25 billion, in fines for foreclosing people. And yeah, they were unfair in some cases, but in most cases, what else could they do? The people weren't making payments. So the banks are going to be, right now, obviously, there's some restrictions on it, and the banks are going to be very careful about foreclosing on some people. Now, there is obviously going to be some issues down the line, but again, not to a point. These people, they can't make the payments because prices have gone up so much the last, we're now going to our 10th year of a 10-year bull run on the market that, even if they had to sell, they have enough equity where they're not going to be foreclosed upon. Here's another graph is people always wonder, who's buying homes? Well, right here you can see all the way through, some 18 to 29s, and then the millennials, 30 to 39, are making up the early to late millennials. In the 30 to 39, 40 to 49 are basically making up the bulk of the purchases. Now, the one thing you'll see different is not too long ago, that the baby boomers were buying homes in their 30s, are their early 30s, 30 years old or so. The millennials are buying homes much later. They're getting up in their late 30s, early 40s. They're buying homes much later now because of student debt, because prices have gone up, but they're just getting right now into their buying market. So let's take a look, see how the market's going. Here's San Ramon. Now, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we saw a little pullback. We saw active listings come up, pending sales go down a little bit. You can see it's kind of bounced back up again, so that August we talked about was just a blip. It was just basically an August swoon with people going on vacations, getting ready for schools, whatever that school means to them at the time. And so you see the pending sales have gone up a little bit. Actives have gone down a little bit. Again, we'll watch it very closely because that's a trend that doesn't, bode well if you're a buyer out there in the marketplace. Having said that, you can pay more for a home because the interest rates are so much cheaper. The affordability is there. Let's look at Danville. Very similar. The pending stayed pretty the same. They've gone down the last couple of weeks for the most part. But again, look at active properties. Active properties have gone down. Now, we'll see what happens because as we get in, because during that August season, there isn't a lot of activity and there's not a lot of homes coming on the market because people, again, are getting their vacations and starting school. So we'll see what happens the next couple of weeks. But that doesn't bode well as far as trying to even out the market from being a seller's market. So let's look at Blackhawk. Now, Blackhawk, you can see, almost stayed exactly even. Blackhawk did, at one point, the pending sales were even with the active, which I'd never seen in my, 30 plus years of selling homes at Blackhawk. Now we've seen it even out a little bit. Now, the one thing to know, you sit there and go, my God, is that a buyer's market now? Well, no, that's more of a normal market because you got to remember, the pending sales, the average price is between $1.5 million and $2 million. The active sales are $3 million an average price. So again, it's like a pyramid we talked about. As you go up in price, you have less buyers. So when you get into an expensive neighborhood, you're going to have something like this. But this is a very active market for Blackhawk, though it did trim down just a little bit. We'll keep an eye on that. So Alamo, very much the same. Last week pending sales went down a little bit, but active properties went down a little bit because, again, remember, Alamo, the average price is $2 million. So this is still a very active market, from that standpoint. So it's not a buyer's market for sure. The homes that are like $1.5 million to $2 million in Alamo, especially West Side, are getting multiple offers. We look at Dublin, and Dublin, because the average price is around $1 million, less than $1 million in a lot of cases, that market is one of the most ones that are out of whack. Though you did see the pending sales go down a little bit and the active sales go up. So the market right now overall is still very active, still a seller's market. If you're a buyer, be a smart buyer. It's very difficult. One of my team members just made an offer on a piece of property, and there were 5 offers, and they came up 60,000 above asking on a less than a $1.2 million home, and they missed it by like $25,000. Other listings that we've gotten multiple offers, $100,000 more, $80,000 more. I think in my 42 years, I tell people, I'm not sure if I've ever seen the market this active. And it's, I think I've seen it this active, but obviously not at these prices. I mean, the prices are so high and it's still so active. Why is that? Well, the reason why is because you got so many people. I think it was Salesforce, and someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think it was Salesforce that basically said that they basically now have told their employees, for the most part, they can work at home permanently, at least a good number of them. And there was another company, I don't know what company it was in San Francisco, I heard that paid $90 million to buy themselves out of the lease. And because I would not want to be a heavy commercial landowner right now, because I don't know when people are going to go back to work. There's so many things in our society, and now it's not going to change. I do our office meetings on Zoom now, and you know what? We get about twice as many people on, and because when you do it in the office, it starts at 9, and it really doesn't start till 9:30 because everyone's milling around and stuff like that. So even when we're post-COVID, and they're talking about a vaccine by, November, even when we're post-COVID, things are going to look completely different out there. Hopefully we'll get back to a little bit of normalcy, but in the real estate, everyone's still going to be working from home. A lot of people are. We're still going to be seeing a lot of Zoom meetings. So people always ask me, when you look at this market, Joe, what can slow it down? It's all about supply and demand. Here's the factors, and here's why there's really no end in sight per se. One is inventory. Well, we have such a shortage of inventory, that's not going to change. Certainly, if the buyers quit buying, the inventory would go up. It's not really the inventory going up. It's just what's there isn't selling. So it looks like it's going up. But there isn't a builder out there building another 30,000 homes that are going to enter the market. In California, especially the Bay Area, there's so many restrictions on new building that inventory is always going to be lower than what it needs to be. So what else are the factors? So if the inventory is not going away, what about the demand? Well, the thing that changes demand is interest rates, as we talked about before. When it's so affordable at 3%, you go up to 4%, and you're literally at these prices, you're basically knocking 25 to 35% of the buyers out of the market, just if it goes from 3 to 4%. So that can change the market a little bit, the buyer demand. But again, because there's still a lot of economic problems in the United States, there's no end in sight as far as the interest rates going down. Thirdly, buyers' confidence. We might see a little bit there because as we get closer to the election, they expect because what buyers don't like is the uncertainty. And here's the one thing for sure. After the election, the way our country is, 50% of the people think that the country is going to hell. No matter who wins. The Republicans who win, 50% of the people think the country is going to hell. The Democrats could win, 50% of the people think the country is going to hell. But here's what happens as you get closer to the election and the uncertainty. 100% of the people aren't quite sure, because this is going to be a close election as they always have been. What is it, 50.2 to 48.8% or whatever? So 100% of the people, as we get closer to the election, have this uncertainty because everyone thinks the country might go to hell. Now, I don't think the country is going to go to hell no matter who's elected, but because housing is still going to be there. But definitely there's two different mindsets as far as how they look at housing and the entitlement they feel around mortgage deduction and all of that stuff. And I'm not going to get into politics about it, but overall, the factors of, high demand and low supply, I think are going to be here. But definitely there might be some uncertainty in the market, especially like we're telling our sellers, if you have to get your home on the market, let's do it sooner than later. Because as we get towards the elections, we might definitely see a pullback a little bit. So, but if you have any questions about your individual home, give me a call. Let's first go over the list price to sold price percentage. The same thing you can see, in San Ramon 100%, Danville 103, Alamo 106, Blackhawk 99%, Dublin 100%, all 100% plus. Everything that's selling. Now you still see active properties, but those are either priced high or they're higher price range where there's not as many buyers. But for the most part, everything's selling at asking price or above asking price. Now, when you look at last week, you'll see, I have to point this out, you'll see Alamo just kind of going up and down. All of a sudden, Alamo was 73% of asking. You sit there going, how did that happen? Well, I'll tell you how that happened. David Duffield's home that was listed at $28 million in Alamo ended up selling for $19 million. So you can just kind of ignore that 73%. And you can sit there and go, my God, it's 106%. Well, we only had 3 homes close in Alamo the last week, and 1 closed at well over asking price. So again, when you don't have a lot of sales and closings, there always can be one that kind of knocks the market off a little bit. But for the most part, I can tell you the average price is asking price or more than asking. So if you have information if you need information on your home, because remember, we're talking about Blackhawk, Danville, San Ramon, but every neighborhood's a little bit different and how the market is affecting. There are some neighborhoods out there. There was a home in Windermere that one of the agents in our office made an offer on, and it was $1,699,000. So for Windermere, it was 4,000 square feet. So it was definitely the high end, but it was a really nice lot, great home. They had 24 offers. 24 offers. That means 23 people didn't get the home. And the agent in our office, the offer they made was $100,000 over asking and didn't even get a counterback. So there are some markets or some neighborhoods that are hotter than others. But if you have any questions at all, please reach out. Again, my cell number 925-487-6838. And of course, joe.kehrig@cbrealty.com. I'm the managing broker of Coldwell Banker in Danville. Please reach out with any questions. Please be safe out there. COVID is a real situation, and we have to protect those that are more apt or in a weaker state. So be careful out there. Be safe, and may God bless you, your family, and may God bless the United States of America. Have a great week, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.